The Chronicles of The Plus One Infection, a podcast and novel by Kevin C. Norris. Chapter 2, The Plains of Chaos, in which our hero finds himself trapped in a world not his own with a surprising new companion.
The only time you can be completely free from risk is when you're in prison. Edward Snowden.
Subchapter 1. I'm falling, and everything is just a blur of pain and sound and harsh wind, and I can hear somebody laughing somewhere, but I'm nowhere for what feels like a long, long time. What the fuck just happened back there? Was it all just a game? Some kind of ploy to get me taken out of the picture? If so, who was behind it? Who even knows about me? I mean, I tend to make a splash whenever I'm involved with things, but not in any way that should be pissing off anyone higher up. Not any of the real players in the cosmic game. I'm below their radar, certainly. Or am I? I guess I've been more active of late, and you never know who talks to who, but for crying out loud, I've been pretty much stuck in basic human affairs, keeping the lower level shitheads out of our business enough to create plausible deniability for my own dimension. I shouldn't have been stepping on anybody's feet or whatever, pseudopodia. I'm nobody, aren't I? This line of thought is really getting me nowhere. Obviously somebody wants me, if not dead, at least out of the way. I don't know where I'm headed exactly, but I do know that it's going to be far from where I started, judging by the amount of time I've been falling through nothingness. Time and distance are all relative here, but when you've been through enough transdimensional portals, you kind of get a loose feel for, well, if not direction, at least velocity and distance over time. And this is a long one. Further than hell, surely. Heaven? Doubtful. And anyway, the pukes I was dealing with in the apartment building shouldn't have any kind of direct line to heaven. Usually it's just the law and order types who can get there. Or at least that's always how it used to be. After a while I start to get used to it, and I think, okay, could be worse. In a way, it's kind of soothing to just be falling through a jangly nothing universe with no perspective except your own brain. Then, of course, as soon as I think that, somebody comes up behind me and hits me in the head with a brick. Wham! I hit the ground, hard, flat on my back, my head smacking into what feels like hard-packed sand, slightly yielding but hard enough to send out little stars into my vision. In the last half-second I have before losing consciousness again, I manage to see a gray, cloudless sky reaching down to a horizon marred by the blurry form of another person lying on the ground about 6 feet from me, not moving. It seems to have long brown hair, slight shoulders, and oh shit, it's all going dark. Subchapter 2. I open my eyes and see a gray, empty sky above an almost impossibly flat and wide horizon. It makes Kansas look like the Ozarks. My head aches and my throat hurts, like I've been screaming. I can smell something in the air, wood smoke and some kind of cooking meat maybe. My mouth waters and I realize I must still be alive if I'm in pain and hungry, so that's something. I'm laying on my side and I start to sit up but realize my hands and feet are tied. Well, if this isn't adding insult to injury. I'm not wearing the clothes I came through the portal with, which is unnerving. I've got what seem to be a simple shirt and pants, like hospital scrubs, made out of some rough material that I don't recognize. Doesn't matter. The whole thing adds up to one thing. Prison uniform. And judging from the surroundings, I think I know what kind of prison I'm in. See, one of the first things my dad made sure I understood growing up was the real makeup of the entire universe. First of all, there's the dimensional riffraff, all these piddling little ne'er-do-well planes that don't really get up to much. Most of them don't really ever get past the whole slime on a rock aspect of existence, but there are a few that get up to some nastiness. The nebular star baby I mentioned earlier comes from down there, and sometimes shit gets through and that's what I have to deal with. Then there's the Inceptive universe, which is made up of what you and I see as everyday reality. Earth, the galaxy, gravity, physics, water is wet, colors are, colorful. All that shit that most people take for granted. It's sort of run by God, or the great architect, Alpha and Omega. Although I think his real name is Alan. He's super powerful, keeping everything going is sort of an afterthought, but really he's just this big pimp who has a crazy pool party going on in one of the eddies of the flow of creation. I forget which one. Think Hugh Hefner times like infinity. He's got a real nice place. It's a constant party with beautiful angels of every persuasion who will give you celestial orgasms, and there are rivers of wine and mountain peaks covered in cocaine, all without any consequences. Everyone calls it heaven, but it's really just this all-powerful asshole's bachelor pad, you know. I haven't really been there, but I've seen pictures. If you're invited, it's because Alan found you interesting. Then there's the hell dimension, which we've already talked about. It used to be a pretty well-run place until Adolf took over. Now it's just like this big orgy of misery. Actually, it's a lot like Alan's place, except instead of orgasms, the angels give you forced colonoscopies with red-hot egg beaters, and the music's all Wagner all the time. A lot of low-level imps escape from there and cause trouble in our dimension. I don't know, something needs to be done about that place. But both of these places are pretty small potatoes next to the big ones. Order and chaos have been in a cosmic arm wrestling match since before there was even time there to be before. In fact, I'm pretty sure the only reason the rest of us even exist is because these two are too busy keeping each other in check to really notice what we're up to. But that doesn't mean they don't take an interest, it just means they don't bother to expend much more than the smallest bit of energy on us. And when I say the smallest bit, I mean something on the order of a googolplex of a sun's worth of energy. That's the scale we're talking about here. But they keep it subtle, generally. H.P. Lovecraft had probably the biggest connection with this century with the Chaos guys, but he only got glimpses. And he was counteracted by Hemingway's touch of order, so it balanced out. I don't know why it tends to affect artists. Maybe they have some kind of overdeveloped gland or something. But anyway, as long as nothing too serious is happening, the Order and Chaos guys just seem to keep to themselves and just tangentially give guys like Salvador Dali and Andy Warhol the willies. Alan keeps a pretty low profile, and Lucifer, when he was in charge, was a model of precision and engineering. Hitler isn't doing himself any favors by mucking things up in hell, but so far he hasn't made enough waves to garner any attention. We hope. Subchapter 3. So why am I telling you this? Because, and all this is blowing through my head at 1,000,000 miles a second, I recognize what the blank sky and the flat horizon means. It means that I have fucked up royally, and that I have made somebody on the chaos side very unhappy. I don't know what me being tied up means, but the environment I'm in tells me that I've been set square in the center of a chaos prison orb. And that only happens if you have pissed off somebody really powerful up there. The prison orb is basically chaos's idea of good engineering. It takes about 1 trillion units of celestial energy to conceive, create, and maintain this bubble of reality and chaos. And it's almost always for one individual, and it's really tailored to that being's makeup. It's so fucking much trouble and energy that it makes zero sense, which is how chaos likes it. Order, meanwhile, tends to just stack their prisoners into super efficient body cells and vacuum seals them to about the size of a peanut. You can get about a planet's worth of people into an order facility. It's really quite a thing to see. But at any rate, I now have some idea of what happened. The big bad that I came in contact with in the end there had a trans-dim portal open to my own personal prison reality, and I fell right into it. Only I wasn't by myself, was I? I wonder if they took that into account. Hey, it's a woman's voice. She doesn't sound friendly. Hey, asshole. Yeah, no, not friendly. I turn my head, awkwardly moving onto my back on the packed ground. It's pretty dim, but there's a kind of non-specific light coming from somewhere, so I can make out a little bit. Girl from the room, all right. I struggle for a name, but it doesn't come yet. She's got the cuts and bruises from her none-too-gentle captivity, but they seem to be scabbing over on her coffee skin like they're healing. Criminy, how long have I been out? Eat this, she says curtly, and shoves a length of stringy meat towards my mouth. I take it. It tastes pretty good, not great, but the wood smoke gives it a slight, pleasant spiciness. I say through the mouthful, chewing to get it manageable. I'm vegetarian. Not anymore, you're not. This is all there is. And she presses a leathery, moist sack at my face. Water sloshes into my mouth and I cough, spluttering. I try to swallow the rest of the meat before I yak it onto the ground. Knock it off! I shout after a few minutes of struggling. She looks at me, her brown hair waving slightly in front of her face. She looks strangely satisfied. She turns away. There's no reason to tie me up, I say. Neither one of us is going anywhere. I see her fiddling with something on the ground. Hey, are you listening to me? She turns back. She's holding a fairly large rock in her hand. Oh, I say. Wham! Everything goes black. Oh well. Subchapter 4. I wake up again! I'm disoriented, and this time I'm pretty pissed off. I try to keep my breathing steady and my eyes closed for the moment just in case she's watching me again. I can take a lot of punishment, but it's just as unpleasant for me as it would be for anybody to get clocked in the face with a rock. I don't hear anything, so it seems the fire has died down. There's no movement in the immediate vicinity. I partially open one eye and can only see the same damn horizon stretching off to nowhere. I raise my head a little bit and now I'm able to see the small area that's been swept away and a tiny campfire that seems to be smoking and smoldering. There's a small pile of brush off to the side that apparently she's been using as fuel. There's another bigger flat rock that I can see she's laid out some of the strips of bloody meat. We appear to be on something of a small rise, but it's only very slight, and I can see the landscape reaching off into the distance. Not very promising, only stunted brush and rocks that I can tell. Where has she been getting the water, the meat? How did she start the fire? So many questions. The first things first, though. I have to get out of whatever she's using to tie me up. From the feel of it, it's the same kind of fabric that we're wearing, so I can guess that she pulled it either from my clothes or her clothes. I vaguely hope it's hers, although now isn't really the time to be thinking about anything like that. I flex my wrists. It's pretty tight, actually not a bad job, but I can feel a bit of give. I concentrate, applying more and more pressure until... pop! My thumb goes out of its socket. It hurts like hell, but after a few seconds I'm able to yank the flopping thing under the material and get one hand free. Then I untie my feet and sit on my hand, pressing my pelvis down until my thumb works its way back into place. Again, it hurts like a motherfucker, but I'll just file that away in my list of things to be pissed about. Don't get me wrong, I haven't forgotten how she saved my life, how she was able to muster up the courage and strength to grab me away from that thing while I was standing there nearly shitting my pants. I do appreciate it, and I'm not undervaluing her assistance. However, I don't like being tied up, and I certainly don't like having my head nearly caved in with a rock, so we'll just have to talk about that. Speaking of which, where has she gone? I stand up, looking out across a nearly featureless landscape. I can't tell what time of day it is because there doesn't seem to be a sun, only that weird omnipresent light that suffuses everything. In point of fact, it's kind of annoying. In a few seconds I spot her. She's about 500 yards away, more or less, and I can't really tell what she's up to except that she seems to be moving back towards the campsite. She's got something slung over her shoulder. The water skin is my guess, and something else in her hand. I sit down cross-legged in the dirt and wait for her. Subchapter 5. She spots me when she's still about 50 yards away. I can see her start in surprise and stop, but after a few seconds she shrugs and continues back up. I can see now that she's dressed the same as I am, in the same shapeless shirt and pants, although she seems to be wearing some kind of flat sandals. As she gets near, I can hear that she's breathing heavily. It must have been a pain carrying all that water around with her. I can see in her hand what now looks to me like a flat, knife-like blade, probably made of rock, and probably what she's been using to cut up the meat. "Hello," I say, grinning. I give her a little wave to let her know I don't mean any harm. When she doesn't respond, I continue. "So I couldn't help but notice that you had me tied up." She just stands there looking at me, her pretty young face set in hard lines of distrust. I feel sorry for her looking like that. Well, no, I don't. I don't really feel anything, but I sense that I should feel sorry for her. Sometimes that's enough. "Anyway," I continue, "I just couldn't help but notice that you gave me food and water and then hit me with a rock. That rock over there, I'm pretty sure." I gesture with my sore hand at the rock, which lies there innocently. It's just a rock, after all. She looks at me some more. I can see her fingers tightening around the blade. "Oh no, little girl, you don't want to do that." "So what now?" I say. It's her move. I can sit here all day, or whatever passes for a day in this place, if she wants to play that game. Her hand loosens on the rock, just as her jaw unclenches. I didn't know what to do with you yet." "Okay," I say, "that's a start." "I knew that you were probably sent in there to save me. That's why I took you with me." "Fair enough. Thanks." "I also knew that wherever we were going to wasn't going to be very nice. I heard the little imp talking to it about where they were going to send you, so I thought I might need you with me." "That was pretty smart. Didn't get the thing's name by any chance?" This was something that's been bothering me. Why was I so overcome by this one damn creature more than anything else they threw at me that night? I think the little devil thing might have called him Rast? Shit. Rasputin? Yeah, that was it. Oh, holy fuck. No wonder. If they were willing to call out the Mad Monk just to get me, they certainly weren't fucking around. That guy, even when he was on our plane, was one of those even my dad wouldn't have messed around with. My education with my father was cut off pretty early before I made my way from Poland to Germany, but I knew enough to know that that guy was bad fucking news, and now I'd had his fingers at my throat. I shudder. She's eyeing me with something a little less than complete distrust, so she must have gotten an inkling of how out of sorts her news had made me. Okay, that's fine. If she wants to see me as human, then that's okay with me. Whatever gets the job done. Now the only question is, what's the job that needs doing? Subchapter 6. After a few more minutes of small talk and comparing notes, we've sorted a few things out. She's a junior in college. Studying, I don't even give a shit. And when she was getting picked up from school to come home from break, the driver was some guy she didn't recognize and turned out to be 3 piss-colored mollusk things stuffed into a human skin. Once she realized she wasn't going to LaGuardia, she tried to make a break and they crashed the town car, wrapped themselves around her, and she didn't remember anything until she was in that room with the imp and the Russian nightmare. Yeah, those were pus demons, paralytic secretions. Best not to think about it. From there, she just played it quiet until she saw her chance with the imp's attention focused on me. That was a hell of a thing you did, I say. She just stares moodily into the fire, her knees pulled up to her chest, arm crossed beneath her chin. After the fall through the portal, she said she blacked out the same as I did, but she was able to break her fall and remain conscious, even though she was pretty beaten up. After a while, she managed to rouse herself and found me. Why did you tie me up? I don't know, she says. I was scared. I mean, look at you. I have to admit she has a point. Even without all my stuff, that I'm going to have to fix at some point. The main event is out there somewhere, and I'm going to be taking it back sooner rather than later, if at all possible. I do look like kind of a gargoyle, what with the scars and tattoos and everything. And the rock? I just wasn't ready to talk to you yet. I'm sorry. I consider this. Okay, I get it. She's not ready for all this. She did act pretty ballsy when the time came to be ballsy, but she's still just a kid, basically. I owe you one then, I say. I hope not in a threatening way. It's just how the universe works. Then she talks about how she panicked for a few hours while I was unconscious until she found a lighter sitting on the rock and made a fire on the little rise we're sitting on now. And you just didn't wake up, so I kind of just left you there and wandered around yelling for someone to help. But there's nobody here. Where'd the meat come from, I ask. The water. She shrugs. The water is from a tiny spring about half a mile from this spot. The water skin was just lying next to it. She picked it up and filled it and brought it back. Starting to get an idea of what kind of prison this is. These chaos types, they don't fuck around. If they put you in a prison, they will expend a lot of energy to make sure it's your personal version of hell. That's hell with a lowercase h, in case you were wondering. But anyway. No, she tells me how she just found the spring, and then after that she just found this meat sitting on a rock, which she cooked and ate. And then, after that, she's just been ranging out farther and farther, trying to find something other than rocks, scrub brush, and dirt. You haven't found anything. She shakes her head. And you won't, because this is my punishment. We've got water, food, clear skies, nothing but rocks for company. So, it's boring, hon. I'm gonna go out of my skull. Subchapter 7. What I don't tell her is how fucking dangerous her position is. If I had ended up in this predicament myself, it would have been all of a week, or whatever the fuck you tell time by in a place like this, before I was fucking losing my marbles big time. Flat landscape, easily accessible water supply, meat to keep my bloodlust going, but not even a fucking rat to hunt it out of, putting it right in front of me like a fucking delicatessen. Shit, even thinking about it now makes me itch. If I wasn't alone, I'd have been screaming, running in circles, probably digging holes until my fingers bled, trying to just get out and escape the boredom. Classic chaos. They really know how to turn the screws. Only, I'm not alone. Rather than just me in this shithole at the wrong end of the dimensional dumping grounds, it's me and a delicious 20-year-old hanging out beneath the lack of stars and deciding from moment to moment what we're going to do with each other. So they fucked up, kind of. Not ripping this piece of ass apart with my bare hands is going to keep me from being bored, for sure, but it's also going to make me fucking miserable, especially if I have to keep up this caring daddy routine. So all I can figure is that I gotta find a way out of this place before I run out of patience and I do something I will likely enjoy quite a bit, but ultimately regret. She throws another piece of brush on the fire and it flares up a little, brightening her face for a moment. She really is cute, with big brown eyes, full lips, freckles. Just really the kind of girl you could fall in love with, you know? Sitting around a campfire, under the sky or whatever, just you and her and about 1,000 ways to beat her face into a pile of raw hamburger. I lean back and lace my hands behind my head. The sky is a vague mass of gray. You know, I say, that was pretty brave what you did back at the apartment building, saving me and everything. She doesn't respond. I look over. Diana? But she's gone, wandered off again. Oh well, I suppose that's just as well. There's nothing here that's going to hurt her. Except me. Subchapter 8. After a while she comes back. It really is interesting how you can lose track of time when you don't have anything to go by. There are internal mechanisms, sure, but when there isn't a sun or any kind of night to tell you when to eat, sleep, and shit, it just kind of all rolls into a ball of vagueness. I drank water twice when she was gone. I pissed by a rock. I don't know if the word is happy, but I kind of feel something when her little dot on the horizon starts getting bigger. Maybe it's just that all my parts are aligning again, all the little parts that keep the violence and craziness in check. When you're sitting by yourself on a featureless landscape, it's really easy to let the brain go on walkabout. With her coming back, that means I have to come back too, so I do. I prepare myself not to leap at this girl at the moment she's within arm's reach. Tie that mental shoelace or whatever. When she's close enough to call hey, she does so. Hey! I wave, trying not to look batshit insane. I smile too, which I don't often do because in my case it really is just as much a baring of teeth as anything else. I'm never delighted. I never had a birthday party as a kid. Not that I think that matters. I mean, I think I'm pretty great, but smiling isn't really a part of it. She trudges over the campfire, some brush under one arm and a really unhappy look on her face. There's nothing out there, she says. I know, I told you. But I mean, really nothing, like not even different rocks or anything. She blows out a sigh and throws one of her little brushes on the fire. They burn for a surprisingly long time. Oh, did I say surprisingly? I meant boringly. They burn a flat blue to orange color that never changes, never pops or shifts, just burns. And the smoke smells like smoke. There's no wind to speak of as it goes up, straight up. Boring. They did it for me. This prison is supposed to drive me crazy. But I mean, the landscape, it's almost like, if you look at it, she takes her knife and draws a little square in the dirt. It repeats. And the seams aren't lined up, so when you really look at it, it's like one of those late 90s video games where they didn't bother with the graphics too much. That's chaos for you. Never really that into video games. Real life tends to give me all the excitement and violence and Italian plumbers, don't ask, that I need. So somebody made this place, she says. Yes, just for you. Yes, to make you crazy until you die. At least. But you're not crazy. I shrug. Listen, kid. Don't call me kid. Listen, Diana, there are a lot of things that you don't know, and I gotta hand it to you. You're dealing with all this just very well. But truth be told, the only thing that's keeping me from being crazy is that I said I wouldn't kill you, and when I say something, I do it. She glares at me for a moment. And if you hadn't, you would be dead in a second, dead and raped, or raped and dead, probably eaten to some extent. And then I wouldn't have anything but your bones, and I would probably jerk off all over them for a while, and then I would just lose it completely, and, okay, she says, her eyes wide. I can see there are tears there. Well, you know what? Fuck you, kid. You didn't have to ask. I'm immediately angry, and the rage spike starts stabbing into the back of my eyeballs. It would be so easy just to end this. There's this agonizingly long moment where we stare at each other, predator and prey, killer and victim, and all my muscles tense up until I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end, and my hands are trembling to get to it, to do their bloody work. That moment lasts until... What if I kill you first? She asked, eyes shining but mouth set hard as granite. And that's what it takes. The rage passes. I remember myself and my word, and it's done. I actually smile. I do. I really goddamn do. I toss another branch onto the fire, and I say, Diana, many have tried, and I wouldn't bet against you, to be honest. I can see that now, but don't kill me yet. Her hand, I can see, is resting on their stone knife. There's only the slightest tremble at the pulse that I can detect. Not bad, considering her position, or at least what she thinks her position is. Why not? The air, though still the same boring 78 degrees, gets chilly somehow. Because, babe, I'm the one who knows how we're going to get out of this place. Subchapter 9. Oh, Come on, don't ask me that. Do I really think she could have taken me with that fucking hunk of sharpened stone in her lap? Had the predator suddenly become the prey? The villainous dastard suddenly the one tied to the train tracks while the girl twiddles her mustache? I'm not gonna lie to you if you want to know. No, she couldn't have taken me. I had 11 ways to kill her already lined up, and that was before I took the knife from her, easy as you please. That whole scenario that ended with the bones and the jerking off could have started right there. But that's not the point. You see, I'm the predator, but I'm not the only one, and I know it. There's a difference between me and that girl. There's a difference between, say, a wolf and a fox, you dig? They're both predators, but one's a lot higher up on the pyramid or whatever. What I was asking about sitting around that fire wasn't whether she was a bigger wolf, but that she wasn't the fucking sheep. Both the wolf and the fox can kill a sheep, and the wolf can kill both the fox and the sheep, but I'll tell you what the difference is. The fox won't roll over and let the wolf kill him. The fight may be short and one-sided, but that fox will go out biting and scratching its red-furred head off. What do you mean, why am I talking about animals? It's a fucking metaphor. You know what? Yeah, you, I would have wasted right there and then, you pencil-pushing waste of space. Christ on a cracker, listen to what I am saying, please. Fuck, what was I saying? You know, I've kind of touched on this before, but most of the people in the world are very content to ignore the terrible shit that happens all around them. If it isn't in their small group of tribal family bullshit, then it doesn't matter to them. And don't talk to me about fucking social media or whatever. If one of your F-book friends from Toledo kicks it, you'll probably write something like, oh, thoughts and prayers, and then go back to whacking it to shark porn or whatever you people are into today. But what this does is kind of pushes people away from actual reality. They live in a bubble where everything is served up to them, even when it's fucking mayhem and murder, in a way that fits into their worldview. Nothing actually happens. It's all on TV or the internet. But then when reality shows up with a big fucking gun at their local mall and little kids are getting their brains blown into the frozen yogurt stand, suddenly they don't have any way to deal with it because it's not fitting into their worldview. Just like a big section of a demon dimension in a quarter of New York doesn't fit. They have no idea what to do with it, so they either just ignore it, or if they can't ignore it, they just bleat and cry until the wolf tears out their throat. Oh, well, yeah, you guys get training. Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah, training can do it. But there are also those rare people who just have it in them. Something hard and small that makes them a little different. It doesn't come out all the time, but it's there when shit gets weird. This girl, who I could have killed 6 ways from Sunday at any point in our acquaintance, this girl looked at me in the eye after I told her I would rape and murder her without a second's hesitation, if not for an agreement made over a cell phone, and asked, "What if I kill you first?" That, when you boil it down to its very core, is the fox in action. I may have nothing on you, and you may kill me quickly, but I'm not going to go without a fight. So at that moment I knew what I was dealing with, that we were not predator to prey, but predator to predator, however uneven the balance of power may be. And I can deal with a fox. I eat fucking sheep. Subchapter 10. So, one of the many great things my father did for me before his death was to give me a real sense of what it means to be prepared. For all the crap the Boy Scouts have been getting lately, particularly with all those scout leaders that turned out to be shamanistic grizzly bears, and the mass poisoning at the Jamboree, one thing that you can't take away from them is that they have a pretty good motto: be prepared. It's gotten me out of more than one jam for sure. Remember when I gave you that piano wire I had secreted in my thigh muscle? Well, let me tell you, thanks to my dad and a doctor friend of his who enjoyed doing, quote, experimental surgeries, that's just one of the many, many useful little doodads I have shoved into my body. Believe me, it's hell going through metal detectors. Probably why I don't fly. Also, it's faster and cheaper to find a bored djinn who will whisk you wherever you need to go. Anyway, yeah, I'm like a walking Swiss Army knife. But one of those things I had in me, I needed to get out, and I couldn't do it myself. See, it was here, small on my back. You can still see where it's healing. Oh, or maybe you can't. Huh. A lot of my tattoos point and give little hints as to where things are. Over the years, I've had them redone a few times to make sure everything was still in the right place. Sitting in the tattoo parlor with a buddy of mine, running a metal detector over my back and arms going squee-oo, 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 spooking the shit out of the other patrons who were just there for a dolphin tramp stamp or a mother heart design. I swear, whatever happened to that guy? Oh, right, he died. I should look him up. But anyway, I say to Diana, okay, kid, neither of us is going to like this, but I'm going to need you to do a little impromptu surgery with that knife thing of yours. She looks at me, then at the knife. What kind of surgery? Fortunately, it's not going to be too invasive. I pull up my shirt over my head, giving her what is probably her first real view of just how much ink I have going on. Oh, God, she says, her eyes going wide. It's beautiful. I grunt. Beautiful is not the first word I'd use to describe it. It's well done, with good shading and outlines that are still sharp after a long fucking time, but most of it is nightmares. I already told you about it a little, but in the even light of this prison orb, I can see it even more clearly. Ludicrous loops and swirls and geometric patterns, religious symbols and glyphs from 100 different hellish languages. It's something to see, all right, but I don't know about beautiful. So, I say, going down onto one knee and then face down in the dirt. You see that little octopus-looking thing down on my left side, just above my butt? You see where its tentacle is pointing? Well, right there I'm going to need you to make 2 incisions like an X, pretty deep, about 2 inches long. I turn my head and can only see her feet, getting those goddamn cardboard slippers they gave her. Christ, haven't those chaos ginks ever heard of arch support? She doesn't move. I start to realize that I may have either over or underestimated her. If I underestimated her, I might get a stone knife in my back, escape plan or not. It probably wouldn't kill me, what with all my fail-safes, but it would make things more complicated. If I overestimated her, then maybe she doesn't have enough steel in her to cut open a guy and go fishing around inside him. That's less of a deal-breaker, but still problematic. I had a feeling that things were going to get rougher on down the line, so I need to know this stuff. Diana, I say, and before a second's gone by, she's dropped to her knees, and I feel a bright sliver of pain, and she goes to it. You know that Patrick Swayze movie where he's a bouncer in this redneck town and he gets sliced up in a fight and needs stitches, and the hot doctor lady gets ready to work and asks him what kind of anesthesia does he want, and he says, none. And she's like, okay. And she just proceeds and he doesn't flinch. And afterwards she's like, how do you do that? And he says, pain don't hurt, or something like that. Well, I tell you what, Mr. Swayze, you're full of shit. Because I can tell you for a fact that pain hurts a lot. You can try to ignore it. You can go to your special place, but when you've got a girl twisting her fingers around the muscles in your lower back, you're going to flinch and grunt and do all sorts of things. I'm lucky I didn't shit myself. I don't feel anything, she says, and for a scary moment I think of all the ways it might have shifted or been pulled into some other cavity, and all this would have been for nothing. Oh, wait, she says, and there's one last huge flare of pain as she yanks it out. I think I got it. Good, I say, and pass out. I come to in a few minutes, and I see her sitting by the fire looking down at the bloody lump in her hands. My back hurts like hell, and I can feel blood flowing down into the dirt. Hey, kid, she looks over at me. A little help? She scowls a little at the kid thing, but comes over. She looks at my back and rubs a thumb across the wound. She looks at the blood on her thumb and says, that thing isn't just going to pop me back home, is it? I laugh, little puffs of dust rising from my breath and adding to the mud in my tear-streaked face. No, it won't, and it's a little complicated, so whatever you're thinking of doing, remember that you still need me. Yeah, she doesn't sound disappointed, but the flatness of her tone indicates that she would have preferred a magic portal back to L.A. and leave me here bleeding in the half-light. It's not going to be that easy, though. You did good, I say. I wasn't sure if you're going to be able to go through with it. She stands up and gets my shirt, rips off about 2 inches all the way around. It's a weird, stitchless thing, and she ends up with a loop that's fairly stretchy. I didn't know either, she said, until I saw you there lying on the ground. I could have stabbed you in the neck, maybe taken your whole head off. Maybe you could have. But I figured you knew that too, and if you're going to trust me with your life like that, then maybe I should just go with it. Maybe you'll keep your word and we can get out of here. I get to my knees and she wraps the bandage around me 3 times until it's pretty tight, at least holding the flaps down. She wipes my blood off her hand onto a rock. The smear of me looks a little like a bird in flight. Not much, though. I stand up. Everything's sore and my vision's a little swimmy, but I heal fast and I might even be able to do a couple of glams to speed things up, assuming it's allowed in this place. Most spoken spells are pretty useless, but a few do seem to work, or maybe it's all just wishful thinking. She holds up the thing that she took out of me. It's small, just an inch or so across, and covered in a bloody gauze and what looks like cartilage. I wince again. So what is this? If it's not a portal or anything like that, how will it help us get out of here? I turn to limp back to the fire. Let's have a look, I say.